From the heart of the Midwest, where heritage meets the glass, you're tuned in to a deep dive with the man behind the Badger Beer Report. He's taking you behind the tap handle and into the brew house to talk shop with the legends of the craft. This is The Session with Greg Washington.
Well, thank you, Landon. 30 years in any business is a milestone, but in the craft beer industry, it is a lifetime. And today, on the debut of The Session, we're looking at a brand that isn't just celebrating three decades in Green Bay. It's doubling down on a major expansion in the West Bend market. Joining us now to talk about the business, the history, and the future of Titletown Brewing Company is the Titletown's president and CEO, Scott Kraft. Thank you for being the first guest on the new format, Scott.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me. It's very nice to see you again. We appreciate the discussion. So thank you for having us.
Yes. Time to get into it. Scott, when you first took the reins of Titletown from the original founders, you weren't just buying a brand, you were buying a landmark, basically. Financially and culturally, what was the health of the house in those first 90 days or so of your ownership?
Things were pretty shaky. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there was definitely a struggle. This was back in 2020, 2021. And yeah, the company was in rough shape, and there were a lot of factors that led into that, and it certainly didn't help that the market was expanding, the competition in the marketplace was expanding in that time frame, and it really had just competitors everywhere, obviously, in this industry, and making it really tough to get shelf space and get your beer out throughout the state. When the guys who were running the company previously decided to build out a bigger production brewery, there was a lot of good reason behind it, and they knew at the time it made a lot of sense. Unfortunately, the market shifted, and so it caused a lot of stress on the company, just given the size of the brewery that we had in place from a production standpoint. So we're in much better shape now. I'd like to say we're completely out of the woods, but that in this industry, I don't know if you ever are, but we're certainly in a lot better standing than we were 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, every legacy brewery has a vibe that sometimes that can get stuck in the era that it was founded. I think you coming in, what was it, Scott? How old was Titletown when you bought in?
We were just celebrating our 25th anniversary, so about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Just in time to celebrate our 25th anniversary.
Yeah. So what was the biggest cultural hurdle that you had to clear to modernize Titletown without alienating the locals?
That
were there, since 1996.
There was a lot of great followers with Titletown Brewing, and there still are. But there were some things that happened over the course of the 2018, 2019, 2020. There was some baggage that was associated with Titletown Brewing, and at that point we were around for 25 years, and so I don't know if when we came into this industry 25 years, well, now 30 years ago, there was only a couple breweries in Green Bay. We were the first one in the city itself, so the landscape was a lot different. And when we got 10 plus breweries just in Green Bay alone. So we felt like we had to, reinvent ourselves and do some things different that we had not been doing before. A big part of it is our brew pub our restaurant got closed down before I was involved with the company. And that obviously had a big shakeup in the culture in terms of people coming to see us and the reasons for doing that. And they continued to maintain a client base after the restaurant went away. So a lot of changes have occurred since then.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you and I talked about in November, but from a business perspective, many legacy breweries struggle with the aging infrastructure. And I think that's what maybe the previous ownership was struggling with. Do you find yourself investing more in unseen technical upgrades like chillers and boilers and plumbing
Yeah.
than you
Well,
initially projected to
I
get the foundation stable? Or let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but yes, we are continually, throwing money and reinvesting back in the brewery itself. I mean, the brewery is not that old; it's 10 years old. The whole brew system that we have in place, but if after 10 years, it does require a fair amount of maintenance and upkeep, and some things break unexpectedly, and you got to be able to respond to those, and then when you have a changeover in the brewing staff and everybody's knowledge of the equipment that we're using changes when that happens. So there were definitely some pains involved in doing that, but we weren't operating in an old building, the old train depot that we used to be in. So that made a big difference on the positive side. But yeah, as the equipment started getting to that point where it required more maintenance than we wanted to, stuff's not cheap to repair when things go down, but it's something you need to do to stay in business.
Amen. And speaking about staying in business, only a fraction of the craft brewers that came out in the 90s are still operational today. Now, as we just spoke about, you have owned Titletown for I say only 5 years. It may seem like 50 at this point, but only 5 years out of the 30, right? But do what when you I assume that when you buy a place, you do a lot of research on the history of it. So I'm pretty sure maybe you can answer this question, or maybe it's in the 5 years. But were there any existential threats looking back at the 30 years that people don't know about that Titletown survived? Whether it's economic, competitive, internal, was there if you make it 30 years in the craft beer industry, there has to be some story there, Scott. You know what I mean? Near misses or something. Obviously, you came in around the pandemic, so is there any is there any story about Titletown that we don't know about? Like,
I don't know if there's anything. Just I want to clarify one point that when it comes to ownership, so I'm not the sole owner, and a lot of the same ownership group is still in place. So I bought in. Then the management of the company has changed over quite a bit, but purely from an ownership standpoint, a lot of the same owners are still there. But we're obviously running the company different now than it was a few years ago. And I think, Greg, probably I don't know if it was an existential threat, but it was really the changing landscape. And what I mean by that's more of a competitive perspective. And we were one of a handful of breweries, and now it's you just have more competition. And it's one thing that you can create your own environment in our tap room, which we do in our Sky Lounge area, but when you're competing for shelf space at retail outlets and working with distributors who carry your products throughout the state, there's just a lot more competition for the distributor's attention as well as the retailer's attention, and then ultimately you get your beer in the hands of the consumer. So our beer, we've continued to make a lot of the products that we've had for years, but we are changing things around now that we're making more frequently new things than maybe we had done in the past. Now, a lot of those will stay in our tap room. They may not make it out to distribution, but I think that itself has been a very big plus for us to have those new varieties coming on a regular basis in our tap room. And even though they're not hitting out into the marketplace on retail space.
Yeah, and perfect segue into my next question, which is in the 30 years, Wisconsin's palate has shifted from just give me a clean lager to extreme IPAs, right?
Yeah,
and then back to just give me a crisp lager, right? And I see y'all serve a lot of them in those big tall glasses that y'all got.
We do.
Kind of like sake. Yeah, I remember it. How has Titletown's flagship strategy though evolved throughout many of those years to remain relevant while honoring y'all's legacy, which is 30 years of worth of recipes?
Yeah, I think so. What we've done when we first got in there, our initial strategy was to keep expanding on our core beers, in terms of what we put into the marketplace and into production, into distribution. But I will say over the last 2 years, we've decided to scale that back a little bit. And so rather than having, 6 or 7, 8 different beers that you're trying to get into the marketplace, we've scaled that back and said, let's just really focus on a handful of them that we know have been popular, have a good following, and let's just keep doing those all year round. And then again, where we would do more of our experimentation, we'll do that in our tap room. And if something goes over in our tap room that we really like, then we'll think about maybe putting it back in distribution. So our strategy has really been to scale back a little bit more in terms of those core beers that we focus on all the time. I will say we're always open to trying new things, and from that standpoint, we did get into the THC beverages. We have been making those now for about a year and a half. Of course, a lot of government uncertainty there with those THC infused drinks. So we're not quite sure where that is going to lead us to over the next year. But I know we had some success with those initial launches of some of our THC beverages as well.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, as Green Bay's original craft brewery, which is hard to decipher sometimes up there, do you feel an obligation as an elder statesman of the local scene, or does that label feel more like weight sometimes when y'all are trying to innovate and, again, trying to stay new, but, respecting the history where y'all came from?
Yeah, I personally feel a lot of obligation to the city of Green Bay, to the downtown area. I live downtown Green Bay, so I look out my window every day and I can see the brewery. And you just, it's got a lot of history. A lot of people have a lot of memories at that place. And, when you take that into account as you're trying to keep this business going, you want to be able to honor the past. You want to be able to honor that legacy that we've had out there. And, we've got an awesome gathering area at our brewery now with our Sky Lounge and our tap room. So it's just, I think it fits in well in a downtown community. And it's been, our smokestack is iconic. You can see it from all over the place that we have down there. And, so we get people coming back to us on a regular basis, for the experience that they can get at our brewery. So yeah, the legacy and trying to preserve that and make it memorable for the next 30 years of guests is definitely weighing on our minds all the time.
All right. And what also is weighing on our minds, what I mean by our minds, I mean craft brewer fan minds, is a recent announcement that Titletown's going to be moving more than almost nearly 100 miles away. And
West Bend, not too bad. Or and a half in Green Bay.
Yeah. And West Bend has been an interesting place as far as keeping an eye on with craft beer in the recent years. West Bend has seen some high-profile turnover recently, including the space that you're taking over, formerly 1984, and right up the street.
1840 brewing.
1984. 1840.
1840 brewing, yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of 1984 in this world, but we're not here to talk about that. It's formerly 1840, and then Riverside Brewing was right up the street there, on Main Street. What did your market analysis say, Scott? That West Bend is in West Bend that convinced you that a calculated move. This is rather a calculated move.
Oh, it's definitely a calculated move. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. There's definitely risk involved, but it was calculated risk. Okay. I guess, Greg, going back to what we talked about, just given the nature of the craft beer industry and it's highly competitive, and we know that we get our best margins when we're making and selling our own beer, and we have a lot of success, in our tap room and Sky Lounge in Green Bay. So, given all the challenges that are out there from a financial perspective with keeping your beer going in distribution around the state of Wisconsin, we just felt like we have to find another second retail outlet, or really a second retail outlet. And I had been looking off and on for probably 3 years. I've looked at a number of different communities, looked at a number of different locations, and we just didn't seem to hit on the thing that we thought was going to be that would fit for us. And unexpectedly got a call probably over 6 months ago now about the old 1840 Brewing, which had since gone out of business, and they had just opened a tap room in West Bend. Heard about that, and we went down, took a look at it, and immediately, almost knew that this was the place we want to pursue. That location, the building, it just checked all the boxes for us. The city of West Bend has been fantastic to work with, and they've been really rolling out the red carpet for us to be a part of their community. So we're very excited about that. But it's great to be part of West Bend, and we're going to be a great partner down there, just like it is to be a great partner in the city of Green Bay. But for the long-term health of our brewery and our company, we just feel like we've got to have another place where we can sell our beer, at a retail premise like we're going to have.
Okay. Well, and one
also,
of
it's a little bit more of a restaurant focus to it. A little bit different here in Green Bay. We don't have as much focus on the food element, but we've got a nice kitchen that's already built out in West Bend. So we will definitely have a nice complimentary food menu that goes along with the craft cocktails and the craft beer that we're going to serve.
Yeah, and so expanding to second location, like almost nearly 100 miles of my notes.
Yeah,
saying
something on there. Yep.
Could create or creates, however you want to look at it, massive logistical and quality control challenges. How are we ensuring that the Titletown experience translates to West Bend without you being there every day, Scott, to walk the floor, or are we going to be doing that?
No, we're not going to be doing that. And I asked that question myself many times before we got into this thing. So a couple things that are great. I mean, first of all, from a beer standpoint, purely from a beer standpoint, all of our beer will continue to be made in Green Bay at our production facility. So the beer we serve in West Bend will be the same as what we're serving in Green Bay, so we can ensure the quality and the freshness and and all the great things that go along with having one of our beers. We're going to haul the beer down. Probably get some type of a small box truck and rent it or lease it or whatever we're going to do and haul beer down there twice a week. But then, when we look at West Bend, it is going to be a bit of a different experience. I mean, the building itself is just going to be a different vibe than what we have in Green Bay. It's going to be more of a food-based, restaurant-based focus as well, along with the beer and the cocktails. So that would be a little bit different than what we have in Green Bay. And going back to your question, how do you guarantee the experience? The only way you can do that is to make sure you got the right people on board that can carry over that experience. So we were extremely, extremely lucky to find our general manager down in West Bend. His name is Cameron Huck, and he decided he'd been part of Inventors Brewing down in Port Washington. So he is very familiar, very experienced with bringing a brew pub online like he's doing for us down in West Bend. And he's a key component to making this thing happen and make sure that we have consistency between, Green Bay and West Bend. And I'll even say, a lot of it too is the communication that we have in place already. We have our regular set time for our managers, in Green Bay and West Bend to get together. So West Bend knows exactly what Green Bay is doing, and Green Bay knows what West Bend is doing. And so I want to make sure as a company that, we have that open communication so that when we're doing something at one location, the other location is well aware of what's going on. And we want to replicate that where it's possible.
Yeah. And my follow-up question, or my next question was, are you treating West Bend as Titletown Junior, or are we building something specifically tailored for Washington County demographic?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I would classify it more as, this is going to be a standalone, unique place, a little bit different than what we have in Green Bay. So I wouldn't call it Titletown Junior. I would call it, Titletown Brother, brother from the same mother.
Okay.
So yeah, again, the experience is going to be different. There's going to be the traffic and the foot traffic and the visibility that we're going to have in West Bend will be a lot different than what we have in Green Bay. Even though we're in downtown settings in both situations, we just think there's going to be a lot of things we can do down in West Bend that we haven't been able to do in Green Bay, and vice versa. We got things in Green Bay that we can do that we can't do in West Bend because of the physical building. I mean, it's really tough to replicate our Sky Lounge, overlooking the city and the river. And unfortunately, we won't have that in West Bend, but we have other things that we think will be equally as enjoyable and still provide a great experience.
Yeah, no one in Wisconsin is replacing the Skyline. So and no one includes y'all, right? Yeah. No one's gonna be able to do that. But couple quick location questions. So just so everybody knows, is there brewing equipment in that place?
No. There's no. It's strictly a tap room. Call it a brew pub, I guess. Because we're going to be serving a nice menu down there. But yeah, we're not planning on doing any brewing down there at this time. Now, if things progress the way we hope, it would be nice at some point. Maybe we can get a smaller pilot system to put in, we certainly would have the room to do that in West Bend, but that's not in the immediate plans.
All right. Well, you've confirmed to me right before I click live here that we have a hard date, and I'll let you get to that, and we can talk about that. But is there a critical path item right now that keeps you up about West Bend? Is it the licensing? Is it it's not the build out, right? Because we're rolling basically.
Yeah, the build out's done.
Right. Or the staffing, or is anything going on that that you're like, man, I wish this were I wish we were a little bit further along, but it sounds like everything's going.
Yeah, we've made good progress. I mean, there was some things we had to, like I said, the physical building itself is not going to change at all. But we had to bring in some more kitchen equipment to be ready to serve food. The previous tap room was not serving any type of spirits or alcohol, spirits and wine, I should say. So we have to build a few things out behind our bar to allow our bartenders to do that. But those are they're a little more than cosmetic. But other than that, there's not a ton. We're adding more TVs down there, so it's going to be we obviously want to be a Packer focused bar down in West Bend, a place for people to gather. For football games and really any sporting events down in that area. But as far as keeping me up at night, I mean, probably the biggest thing, my biggest concern from day one was been talked about before, is just getting the right person that can run the place and represent our company and do a great job getting everything ready and then managing the location after that. So, and I feel really, really good about that situation. We're just getting the word out now to the local community down in West Bend and Washington County, and I think it's going to be a really nice reception, and we're expecting a lot of people to be at our doorfront day one. So it should be really cool experience.
And what day is that?
Well, we are planning. Is this the drum roll part of it? No, we are. Actually, it's going to be the Friday, June 26th is our planned grand opening. Wow. So Friday, June 26th.
All right. And
we are going to be
in West Bend, and that is. I'm sorry.
No, we're going to be open for lunch and dinners. We also have something, I guess, a little bit unique in our the location. We have a coffee trailer that is actually in there. And we probably won't have our barista machines and our barista ready to go day one, but that will be coming shortly thereafter. So we will be open in the morning, for good cups of coffee and espressos and maybe some light pastries and things like that. But that will be probably another month down the road before we have that ready to go.
Excellent. And the week before we open up West Bend, we have the culmination of our 30th year anniversary. So this is where I want you to tell us what are we planning for this wonderful milestone from a wonderful legacy Green Bay brewery.
Wow. I mean, could we plan it any tighter like this? We're going to do our 30th anniversary on Saturday, June 20th. So it's going to be an all-day event that will be it'll be part of the, some of it's going to be inside our Sky Lounge. Some of it's going to be in our tap room. We're going to have things going on outside our building. So we get really 3 different bands playing throughout the day. The group Wet Possum is going to be our headliner in that evening. And from what I understand, they are a very, very popular band up by us. And so we're expecting a good crowd for that. But we're going to have things like trivia going on, trivia contests. We're going to have pinball tournaments. We're going to be pouring some new beers that day. So we'll have some firkins available with some new things, one-off type of activities. And, there'll be some food that we'll have served outside, more of a tailgate style environment. So burgers or brats, something simple, but yet kind of reflects a football tailgate party. And that's really what I try to get across for the day, along with, just having some really good conversations, hopefully get a chance to see a lot of people, that have spent time at Titletown over the last 30 years and, talk about some memories and create some new ones.
Amen. And is there anything else you would like to say before we get out of here? You answered all my questions, and I think everything was It was great.
I mean,
So
just let people know how grateful we are to have had the ability to serve and work with the community and all the guests that we've had over the years. It's always so appreciated to see, not only new faces, but the people who keep coming back time and again is really where we're, feel very fortunate to have that in the following of our beer throughout the state. So this is, it's a celebration looking back 30 years, and also then the following week, a celebration looking forward to, where we think we can go with the company, hopefully over the next 30 years. Not that I'll be running it 30 years from now.
Yeah, we're not right. Well, it's a massive undertaking to hit a 30-year milestone while simultaneously breaking ground on a new market like West Bend. We will be keeping a close eye on that summer opening, and that's Friday,
June 23rd.
23rd. And if you are watching this live right now, thank you for being a part of our debut stream. If you're catching it audio only, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming deep dives. I'm Greg Washington. Thank you for joining the session. Thank you for my guests here, Scott Kraft.
Thanks for having me, Greg. We appreciate it.
And we'll see you on the next